that there is a big gender gap in societies across the world. Rich country, poor country, it doesn't matter. But why should we care? If you are an entrepreneur trying to create a fintech, do you really need to have a gender lens? I mean, is that just like a CSR, or it really matters? So let me share with you two important macro stylized facts and one important micro stylized fact that should convince you before you leave this session that it is very important for any financial enterprise with a tech angle to have a gender lens, women in mind. Why? Number one, I'm sure any of you who even cursorily read newspapers in recent days or recent months are familiar with the fact that income inequality is a big issue all around the world. That's used as an explanation for the rise of the far right or rise of Trump or various other ills in the world seem to be something that is a reaction from the convulsion that happened in the world 10, 11 years ago, coinciding with a sharp rise in inequality. Now, guess what? The relationship between income inequality and gender inequality is extremely high. Countries that are unequal income-wise tend to also be very, very poor toward the treatment of women. They give women less access to financial services, they give women less access to income, and therefore it sort of feeds into the overall narrative of income inequality. So that's issue number one. You could still argue, I don't really care about an income inequal society. If I'm Brunei or some other country filled with oil resources, yeah, all the women can stay at home. Why do I care? They're still rich. Well, it turns out it's not that straightforward. There's a very strong negative relationship between GDP income per capita growth and gender inequality. The more you treat women fairly, the more money you make, and the better off you are. So therefore, number one, income inequality and gender inequality strongly correlated. Number two, gender inequality and income per capita strongly negatively correlated. Third point, from the bottom up, and this is where Mary Ellen's initiatives and some of the research that Women's World Banking has done over the years come in handy. We now have a lot of bottom-up data. Whether you look at what the micro-enterprises in countries like Bangladesh have done, revolutionized women's access to financial services and employment, and as a result, those countries are now in the first tier of developing country with sustainable growth. From that to experiments done by large banks in Europe and Latin America, they all show very important facets of why you should include women in the workforce and why you should give them financial services. They tend to be better risk, they tend to save more, they tend to take the surplus income into health and education. I'm not saying men are not capable of doing that, they do, but the data show women are better at that. And therefore, again, a financial strategy aimed at women tend to give better return on your capital, tend to make your investment less risky. And again, this sort of information, data, findings were sort of anecdotal in the past. Yeah. Only in the last 5 to 10 years, both economists at the top end as well as micro-enterprise workers at the bottom end of the spectrum have been collecting data on a systematic basis, and we're getting this.